Today I'm here with Andrew Cowie and we're going to show you how to make money flipping houses in Toronto, Ontario. In this video, we're going to talk about three main things. We're going to talk about how we went about finding this property, what we did in terms of renovations, and then a third thing where if you stick to the end, we're going to talk a lot more about the numbers. So Andrew, let's start off with telling them how you went about finding this property.
So a seller actually called us. They were in a pretty bad spot. They needed to get out of it. They needed a quick close. So that's something we brought to the table. We brought them an offer price that they took, $700,000, and we liked this property. It's a bungalow, high ceilings in the basement, separate entrance, which is always a great thing in Toronto for a secondary suite. There's a lot of ways to buy a property that is not on the MLS. This one here off market we got through Facebook advertising. So if you want to learn how to do that, get in touch with us and we can hook you up. We wanted to save money. We didn't want to go through long permit processes. So we actually left things kind of where they were, worked with the space that we already had. And we had this section here wide open. And so what we did was we put a bar here, like a breakfast bar, and that way we can utilize the opening in a more functional way.
The kitchen was already in this location. One of the best things that you can do when you're sourcing a property, trying to find something that is affordable and profitable to flip, is that you don't want to have to rearrange everything and move the kitchen to an entirely different location. Yes, it may add value, but it's definitely really costly. It's pretty cost effective to leave everything where it is and renovate it as is, just make it look pretty.
The existing kitchen had this corner here. It was pretty much just a corner kitchen. And so we wanted to do something else to make it a little bit bigger, to have a little more counter space. So that's when we added this type of island here, L-shaped, so that there was a little more storage, a little more counter space to put more things in the kitchen.
This is a really good example with the island when we always say that exercising a little bit of thought is going to make a big difference and not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Remember, when you're exercising thought into how the place should be functioning, how you should be using it, like this smart breakfast nook here, it allows you to connect the space. It's not going to cost you a lot of money, and it's going to make it so that it makes a big difference on how somebody can view themselves living in this property.
We definitely want to take into account when we're doing this stuff, how they're going to be living. So even when we were doing the job, I figured, okay, if I'm in the kitchen, I could be hanging out, cooking some food, and also be watching TV and taking part of a family activity at the same time.
A very contemporary look that we always like to put in any property that we're flipping, if possible, is connecting the kitchen to the living space. Because right now, especially as far as modern design goes, we understand that people congregate in the kitchen. So when you have people in the living area, in an ideal situation, you want to make sure not to disconnect the host, who's probably going to be in the kitchen prepping food for everyone, from the people who are in the living room. So having this connection here is a very modern design and can definitely be very beneficial to your flip project.
So the continuity of design is super important when you're doing flips. You want to make sure it feels really big. So we have the new luxury vinyl planks running throughout the house. We have the pod lights going out throughout the house, and we keep it simple with a black and white style theme, black being the hardware and using the white paint, white trim, and so on and so forth. So we actually left the footprint of the home as is because it was already perfectly laid out for a nice single family home. So we have the 1 bathroom here and the 3 bedrooms here, and that way we can leave it and there's lots of space for a family of 4.
Now the colors all look great and we're doing a really great job of improving the look, but when it comes to how to save the budget, because you're saying, okay, well, you're just spending money renovating everything. But as you can see, when we get into the bathroom, we obviously didn't change this. We left the tiles, we left the layout, but what we did change was we changed the toilet, we changed the vanity, we left the tub, we left the hardware. The only thing in here we changed is this shower head, and this shower head makes it a little bit higher, gives it a little bit of a newer feel, and also we added these shelves in, which again really helped to make the place a little more modern.
One of the best things we did in this project is we added an in-law suite to the basement. There was already a kitchen, already a bathroom, so a livable space for someone else to live in addition to the homeowner upstairs.
The layouts of these things are very important if you can find them, because it minimizes the amount of work that you have to do when flipping a property. Like there's certain things that you don't want to have to contend with, like basement ceiling heights. Just so you know, if you want to duplex a place legally or just want to add an in-law suite, you obviously need enough ceiling height. And finding properties that have enough ceiling height for you to work with is going to be the most challenging part. But when you do, just understand that an unfinished basement where you can add a unit like that is money, especially when you have a layout like this. Like it just feels ergonomic. Living room, seating area, dining area, kitchen, bedrooms at the front of the house, and a bathroom tucked away in the corner. You know, I remember when we first came here, this area felt really good as a living space, but there was a fireplace there. I'm almost kind of ashamed that we removed it.
Well, it was a little tough. Bricks are actually pretty expensive to dispose of.
Sure.
But we looked at it and we're like, you know what? Instead of painting it and leaving it there of a little bit of an eyesore, we decided to demo it, get rid of it, and remove it from the building. And now we have a lot more space in here. It's opened up and becomes a lot more functional because that fireplace was actually on an angle. which prevents how someone would actually use this space.
I think when people come in, one of the first things they might ask is like, what's with the ceiling? Because as you can see, it has the ribs in the ceiling.
So actually, when we got the place, this was partially finished down here. It wasn't a great job that they did, so they tried to take some shortcuts until we took over and made it really nice. So these pieces of wood were put on the ceiling, raw, not finished, not painted, and we decided to use them. So we touched them up, made them nice, and it kind of gave a cool waffle ceiling custom feel. So the first time I walked into this place, I walked down the stairs, they were really rough shape. There was actually no railings at all, so definitely a violation of a code. So what we did was we created these beautiful railings here with the nice pickets, stained it to be close to the floor, and that way you have a pretty grand staircase considering you're walking down into a basement or walking up to the main floor.
The kitchen, it's a little smaller, but why don't you give the explanation?
So it actually would have been a lot smaller before. The plumbing was already there, the electrical was already there. We took this wall, we moved it back a little bit, made the laundry room a little smaller, but that allowed us to make the kitchenette a little bigger. When we first picked this place up, the bathroom was under construction. When you stepped in the washroom, there was an entire wall here that they boxed in for the shower. So we got rid of that, got a shower insert with the shower pan, tiled it up really nice, completed with the black hardware, so it really gave that upgraded feel. New toilet, new vanity, and of course, a mirror with LED to give that extra shine for the next person that's buying the property.
So as of today, that project is now sold, and we made a whopping $163,000 in profits in just 4 months. That is a solid project. This is a great win in 2023. So we break things down just so you can understand how the numbers work into 4 categories. We have acquisition costs, carry costs, renovation costs, and finally the selling costs. So Andrew's gonna break some of that down for you right now.
To acquire the property, we spent $46,000. Now this included lender fees, land transfer tax, double in Toronto because we love it so much.
Of course.
Also some marketing fees to get the leads to get the property, along with lawyer fees at the front end of things. Carrying costs, that totaled about $31,000. Now this takes care of all utilities, gas, hydro, water. We're also talking about the interest payments on the loans. The renovation costs about $112,000. That includes labor, materials, landscaping, and any other rehab on the property. Selling costs, that was about $58,000. Now that takes into account realtor fees, staging, and of course, tax on those realtor fees, along with the closing costs with the lawyer.
So now we're going to go into only a little bit of detail because we want to keep things simple to understand where some of this money goes. Now, obviously, the biggest cost in all of this was the renovations. And one of the things we focus on when we're flipping houses is how to cost down on these renovations and make things a little tighter. So I want to ask a few questions here to Andrew so he can answer some of this. So Andrew, let's just talk about materials alone. We renovated a kitchen on the main floor, a kitchen in the basement. We've done some bathrooms. Let's break down some of these costs. How much was spent just in kitchens alone?
In kitchens alone, we're looking at about $6,000. Cabinets and countertops.
You see, that's crazy pricing if you think about it, because a lot of people are under the perception that these things are very expensive. And I understand this is materials only. This isn't including labor, because what we're doing is we're bulking labor into one cost for the entire project, right? Because we're flipping multiple properties and this is how you control costs. So that's kitchens, supplies only. What about bathrooms?
Rehabbed one of them and then completely gutted the other. So that one with bathrooms was probably about $3,000 all in all in materials.
Okay, so that's an amazing price. Obviously, it's hard to beat these things, but now let's move on to flooring.
Just under $6,000 on flooring for the property.
Yeah, and what do we use here? We used an LVT for the whole place.
Yep, luxury vinyl planks, looks awesome, clean, slick, new, fresh.
And that's covering already most of the big categories. Now, the rest of the big categories we have some electrical going on. How much was spent there?
In materials, $3,000.
Trims and doors, how much was spent there?
That was about $5,000 on trim and doors.
All right, perfect. This is already the big items. Now we have some few other miscellaneous things coming in, like the stairs, the handrail goes in there, moving around some walls, and these things do add up. But in miscellaneous costs, how much were you thinking in supplies?
It's about $8,000 when you add everything up that comes up. I mean, there's switch plates, there's the handrails, like you mentioned, the pickets, a lot of little things you might forget about, and they add up to about $8,000.
Means that there's a big bulk cost coming in here for labor. How much was the labor alone?
Yeah, labor on this one was around the $65,000 mark.
When it comes to the actual renovation cost in terms of labor, this is actually not something you can always save on, because sometimes when you're paying somebody who is able to do good work, quality work, and think on the job, make sure to tie the whole project together, is going to cost you a little bit more, but that is where you ought to be focusing most of your renovation funds.
And controlling costs is crucial. One of the quotes we got from a contractor was about $150,000. So by spending $112,000, which is what we ended up doing in overall, that's $38,000 more in our pocket.
we see about a 30% savings on our flip projects when we internalize management. So depending on how you want to make money, save money, these are all things you can do.
So all in all, we bought this place for $700,000. The acquisition costs were about $46,000, carrying costs around $31,000, renovation about $112,000, and on the exit to sell it, we were about $58,000. That gets our profit to around $163,000 net.
So that's where we're going to wrap it up, guys. If you want to know more about how you can flip houses in Toronto or the surrounding areas, make sure to get in touch with us. We're going to have some info about us in the description below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on the next one.